It's the 120 podcast. Mikey Finelli and Ben Hootie, joined by Matt Cozzi today from Locked On Cubs. We brought in a third member of our crew. We brought in a bigger member of our crew because we got a lot to talk about today. Huge moves in Cubs Nation over the last few days. We teased an interview today on Friday, and here he is. Matt, we have a random connection based on where I went to high school and where you taught, but more than anything, it's more about this network of Cubs podcasters. So it's great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Mikey and Ben. I'm a regular listener to the 120 podcast. First of all, I think you have maybe the best Cubs podcast show name. The fact that was still open and available, that was a shrewd move by you guys. And yeah, we're having fun over at Locked On Cubs, but I'd like to see us collaborate with you guys moving forward, whatever that looks like. And yeah, excited to talk Cubs.
Great. Well, we appreciate it, Matt. You and Sam have a great show. The same sentiment is true. You guys do awesome stuff at Locked On and that whole Locked On network. But Locked On Cubs, admittedly, is a favorite because I like to hear what you guys are doing too. And I appreciate the name thing. Ben came to me at one point last February or January and said, let's do this show. And I shared that same idea, but I was like, we got to come up with a good name. And I don't know. I think we kind of we sat at McAllister's in the Bone Student Center in Illinois State.
I was
going
to get into that. I was like, it took us maybe like 8 different trial and run names.
Oh, wow.
Before we could, like, obviously we never put a podcast out with a different name. So 120 has always been the name, but just trying to figure out a name was impossible. But it was right around the time that, and this is a shout out to Obvious Shirts, when they came out with their clock merchandise. So we took a little bit of spirit from that. And yeah, I mean, it is a great name. I will hold that.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's even funnier too is that because Ben and I obviously both go to Illinois State and we're involved in student radio there. So I would walk into the radio office in the first couple months of the podcast starting when really the only people that knew about it was our friends, and they would see my Obvious Shirts and they'd be like, oh, you guys already have merch? I'm like, no. And if we become any bigger, that's going to be an issue. Like we're gonna have to sort that out.
Right.
Because that could become a real big issue. Because no, it's not ours. It's, rightfully trademarked by a whole other company. So, but yeah, we love it and we appreciate having you on, Matt.
Yeah, and I would say as a teacher first, a teacher by day, podcaster by night, you guys are doing a great show. You're ahead of the game. You're consistent. You're getting the reps. That's what matters. But it's a good sounding show. It sounds like a hangout, which is what it should be. So I would encourage you guys to keep going. And I would say you're a little ahead of your years at this point. Mikey's a senior. Ben, are you as well?
I'm a junior, so I got
all right,
year and a half left of school.
All right. Well, I hope you guys keep this going. And it's a privilege to be the third Mike today.
Let's get into you a little bit. How did you start as a Cubs fan and then as a Cubs podcaster?
Yeah, so growing up in a family that was dominated by Cubs fans, so I was born into it. Really, the first memories of the Cubs I have is Sammy Sosa. So in the 98 season, I would have been turning 7 that summer. And he was hitting the ball over the ballpark and he was doing his run out to right field and he had the unique stance and we would replicate that in the backyard. And he was really the entry point to locking in on the Cubs, sticking with them. Besides the really big family connection, just diehard fans up and down the Cozzi family roster. We have, for some reason, all decided to get married at the same time. And ever since July of 2022, there's been like 4 or 5 Cozzi weddings, mine being the most recent on New Year's Eve. And there's always a Cubs reference in the wedding. I mean, that's how much it means to us. At our wedding, for Kira and I, we sang "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." My Uncle Mike did, followed by "Go Cubs Go." So it's just a strong connection. I've been a follower of the podcast and radio industry for a long time. I went to Iowa and graduated with a journalism degree. Stayed in Iowa City for a few years, worked as a reporter, then got out of the business, went into education. But when I went into education, I didn't really take an eye and ear off the media business. And finally, in the thick of 2020, I started my own podcast. And then my friend Sam Olber and I started our own show. It was mostly Cubs, mostly Bears, but also just like day-to-day stuff as well. We recorded every Sunday, posted on Mondays, and just got a ton of reps. Got 60 to 70 downloads an episode. Didn't care about that. It was totally a hobby. But as we kept getting all these reps and doing these shows and just knowing the industry like I do, I knew we were doing a good show. And we had talked about maybe taking a next step and just exploring what to do. Shortly after opening day in 2022, the Locked On Cubs host left. I would check the feed every now and then, thinking they had somebody ready to go. There was never any new shows posted. And so I finally went to Sam and said, hey, we should reach out to Locked On. Maybe we could take over the Cubs show. And sure enough, we were able to get a couple emails, get the ball rolling. And we've been doing the show since July 5th of 2022.
It seems like you guys have kind of gone full circle with that now too, and you have a great show. You talk about how you started just two guys just having a great podcast, just talking, and I saw you are promoting kind of a similar concept now that you have the fame or that comes with doing the Locked On Network. Yeah,
we're trying to launch a second show right now and going back to some of our roots and putting under the subscription model. So yeah, on Tuesday this week we just launched Matt and Sam Unlocked. Taking the inspiration from Locked On Cubs, which is how everybody knows us now. But we want to get away from the Cubs on that show. So that show is really anything but the Cubs. We'll do Bears, but we'll also do life stuff. And that's really for the dedicated fans. I mean, that's $5 a month. That's no joke. Our numbers since Tuesday have been pretty good. We have some pretty conservative goals to begin with, knowing how hard it is for people to sign up. But every little bit helps, and we'll see where that goes.
What is it like for you guys kind of being like one of the main voices in the Cubs community, not only on Twitter, because Sam, I before I even kind of tuned into Locked On, I would see Sam's tweets all the time. And then kind of as the summer went along, team started to get good, kind of got recognition with you guys, and then obviously the connection, whatnot. So what is that like, just being such a huge, crucial voice for so many fans that rely on you?
It's a lot of fun. We've had a couple different spikes in growth. I'd say the first one was the winter meetings last year. And then probably like last March, right before the season started, we kind of spiked again. And being the number one Cubs show out there is just I have so much gratitude. I don't take it for granted. I appreciate being one of the top voices on the team. It's a lot of work to be in that spot and now hold that spot. It's something Sam, to his credit, had forecasted for us. I tend to be a little more conservative in projections like that, but I think what we've done with the show, we're very proud, and it feels really good. The Locked On people, when they originally were interviewing us to take over, said our model is 5 days a week, 20 to 30 minutes an episode. We're like, wow, that's a big commitment. But then they said, we want you to be yourselves. We want you to be diehard fans. We're not looking for reporters. We're looking for people that could do a good show. So when someone presses play, it's like they're rolling the bar stool up to the bar. Exactly. And if that's the goal, I'm down for that. And I think we've really embraced it. With information, opinion, and it's been very fun. Not to change the subject too hard, but you kind of feel like I'm talking. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
No, it's awesome.
No, right. We like to hear it. You're the guest of the day, and we'll get into the Cubs a little bit with this. It's been a crazy offseason. They really have sped up in the last week or even 4 days. But before that, there was a lot of dead time. And one of the early things that people were talking about, it's funny you mentioned yourself not as a reporter, but you graduated from a prestigious university with a journalism degree, and you had some sources earlier on in the offseason. And I wanted to get into that a little bit. Where are we with Bo Bichette? Is that ship completely sailed, or are we still thinking about that?
Yeah, so that was from a scout that listens to the show and has connections to multiple teams. You know how you see in some stories or some rumblings about players, they've received calls on a player, right?
Yeah,
correct.
That's what that report was. Rarely do we get a report of what those teams are on the other end of the line, but that's what that was. So I've had people, even not recently, but maybe like last month, who sometimes follow up on that because that tweet got huge.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, what about Bichette? And well, I never said that it was like close or anything. The Cubs and the Blue Jays had a call, and that was it. Around that same time, I think there was some juice behind it. But I really think that's all it was. I personally tested the waters with that too. And, since then I made the decision not to do that again. For better or worse. But, I think that the Cubs are talking to a lot of teams. It's nice to get some information for context. But yeah, I don't see them. I haven't heard them and the Blue Jays recently. I'll just leave it at that.
It's really solid reporting. I mean, you said it yourself. It's nothing that you didn't promise that they were going to sign him. No. You said they're having conversations about it, and that was solid reporting. And in this offseason, especially with both football and baseball, we talked about this in our most recent 120 episode. It's hard to get the whole truth. I mean, you saw the whole John Morosi issue with Shohei Ohtani, but even down at a micro level, some of the Bears reporting that's going on right now is really starting to get on my last nerve. And it's because a lot of times people have no source for it, and they're just saying things, and they're not really saying anything. They're looking for clicks. Sure. So your reporting on that was solid, and no one's doubting that. And if they are, they're wrong.
We don't want to correct people too much.
I mean,
that's probably fair.
After you mentioned it, though,
I guess like there's some element of it, like you want to excite the fan base in a way.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Like, I'll admit that. Like, I feel like that was like the first time where it was kind of like sleepy. And it's like, all right, let's put it out there. Let's get the people going.
And that's exactly what I was going to say, is you were able to give not only me and Mikey, but, the 7 other weekly Cubs podcasts something to talk about for a week. Right. So we'll take it. I mean,
yeah,
that's all this sport is speculation. And we've seen that all off season. And there were probably 100% was a call. I guarantee you there's calls on every player every day.
Exactly. Well, it was interesting from that perspective too, Ben, because I listened to all the Cubs shows, big and small. And, some of them would mention the report. Some of them wouldn't. So it's you guys mentioned me by name. You mentioned the show.
Not right.
But, it's like, I don't know. It's weird out here sometimes.
Let me publicly say that I'm embarrassed to say so because I've known Matt at least virtually for a good couple months now. But I have been saying your name wrong altogether when I reported that on the podcast. Cozzi, I apologize. But let's get into the rest of this week so far. We'll start with Shōta. What do you think about that deal?
Yeah, I like the deal. The terms were really surprising. I don't think it lends to any nerves or anything like that. But I do wonder why the projections were close to 100 M's and he only got half that. So that's odd, but I'm not saying like it's suspicious. But I'm just curious why that is. The deal is complicated. There's escalators in there and whatnot. But I think in terms of a roster fit and what the Cubs need, it's a good signing. It's something to be excited about. It shows the Cubs are interested. It shows the Cubs are interested in winning the NL Central in 2024. He immediately slots in as right now he slots in as technically the number 3, because they'll probably go Steele, Tyone, or Hendricks, Imanaga that first weekend just to break up the lefties. But a good signing, somebody that has a good reputation. You wonder about his pitch mix, how it's going to transfer over to the States after being in the NPB for so long. He's 30, so he has a ton of experience. He's coming over a little bit older than maybe some of the Japanese free agents would be. But I think it's a good addition, and excited to see how he's going to have an impact.
And ultimately, right now, what I kind of think with it too is it's basically just replacing Stroman. So do you feel like you're getting better numbers out of Imanaga next year or Stroman? We'll see if they end up dipping their toe again into another starting pitcher, because I know that's obviously still rumored, but I think that's the biggest thing of it all. Is Imanaga going to be a better starting pitcher next year than Stroman to replace what he did?
Yeah, it's a good question. Over the full season, I would lean Imanaga right now.
Yeah.
But I've never seen him pitch in the big leagues. I tend to be very biased to those who have proven their mettle at the highest level. I'm not a prospect hugger. I know we're going to get to the trade earlier today, but it's like, well, if you have to trade people, like that's how you get players back. The narratives around prospects lately have become maybe a little bit overblown. You can't keep them all. Where are they all going to play? Where are they all going to pitch? Stroman opened the 23 season very strong. I would be surprised if Imanaga did that, but I hope he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about how we're going to open that door when we get to this next trade. And I guess I'll just start it now. This jargon about Jackson Ferris leaving the Cubs organization in favor of Michael Busch. And I saw Dom's tweet today, which was the best way I've seen it put. I'm not a fan of the Tennessee Smokies at day's end. I'm looking for the Cubs to win this division this season.
That's good. I like that.
And at this point, I mean, we're going to support the farm, and your term, the prospect hugger term, like, that could mean something for the future. But when you can get a player that can affect winning now, and I think that goes back to the Shōta deal, even though these two things are unrelated. Yeah, you're getting a player who is Stroman's age, theoretically in the prime of his career, although he's coming from a different league altogether. I'm sure there will be a lull and an adjustment period, but you're getting a player in the prime of his career. So if it could pan out, it's comparable, like Ben said.
Yeah, and he's typically a fly ball pitcher, which you maybe get a little skittish about because his home park is not Wrigley Field, which has shallow gaps. But I think over a sustained period, Stroman got to be rocky. Imanaga has not been.
Yeah.
He's pitched almost all full seasons. He's a lot of innings. He eats innings. He doesn't throw hard, but he is a strikeout pitcher. That's interesting to me. He doesn't walk anybody. So I think it's good. And if they add even it would be great if they made a trade. I'm still hearing that the Cubs and Guardians are very closely connected. There's some tea for your show. Bieber would look good.
Yeah.
Let's go through that real quick.
Yeah, well, when we first started talking about at the beginning of this offseason, started to cut you off, Matt, but it was a lot of Glass now and it was a lot of Bieber. And obviously,
you're right.
And obviously Glass now, that ship has sailed, but I still think the Bieber door should remain open, whether or not we're forgetting it.
Steele, Bieber, Imanaga, Tyone, Hendricks.
Beautiful.
Boom.
That's pretty good.
With all that starting pitching depth on top of it, if someone needs the day off. Cubs might have some of the best starting pitching depth in the entire Major League Baseball.
Yeah, and a lot of those dudes are young, but Assad and Wicks both pitched well last year. So I feel really good about them.
and some of the most Gold Gloves in the National League behind him.
Yeah,
Theoretically,
exactly.
especially if they go and re-sign Bellinger. But I mean, you're going to stick
Yeah.
around with Dansby, you're going to stick around with Happ and Horner, and I think Michael Busch could be really solid at. They're saying they're going to start him at first base.
Yes,
Although
I saw that.
I think third base sounds better to me because that doesn't. I mean, Michael Busch does never close the door on Cody Bellinger. I'm not saying that, but it makes me feel a little bit
Right.
better about re-signing Cody Bellinger if you're saying he's a third baseman. And so we'll move to that. Where are we on Cody? You have these sources, Matt. I don't know what you've heard or if anything, but we've always said on our show that we still got at least a couple weeks to wait on Bellinger, I would think.
From this point forward, yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all. I think Scott Boras and his staring contest with the teams he's talking to about his players, it wouldn't surprise me if it lasted into March.
Yeah.
I think that would be excessive, but
yeah,
pitchers and catchers is around mid-February. You'd think that that's kind of a self-imposed deadline for even the players themselves. Like, hey, let's get going here so I can get to a camp. I would say Bellinger and the Cubs seem destined to be together.
Yeah, I like that.
Especially the way the offseason has trended, because obviously we were talking Ohtani, and Bellinger, I feel like got lost in the shuffle a little bit there. But now it just makes too much sense with the flexibility that he could play center field and first base, and obviously the grooming of prospects that will eventually come up and whatnot. And you need that bat in that lineup. And obviously they filled somewhat of a need today with Busch as a left-handed bat, but you still need another like that. That was Hoyer's big thing coming in this year. He wanted pitchers and he wanted left-handed bats. I think he crossed one off the list today. Cody Bellinger is still out there. Go get him.
Would you guys rather have the Bellinger Matt Chapman combo or Bellinger Rhys Hoskins?
Mikey, you could start if you want.
I had this exact conversation today with somebody. I was thinking, or very similar. I guess, I mean, it's so hard to know because you can't know ahead of time, but I really just want to see how Michael Busch is. I mean, minor league player of the year with the Dodgers a season ago, 323 in the minors, but then in his cup of tea in the majors, he barely played better than Pete Carr Armstrong. It's a very similar mirrored effect. If Busch can be really solid, one, they're going to sell about 1 million t-shirts of that guy with the Busch beer logo, and two, they're gonna be really set. But I'm not going to turn down an opportunity at Matt Chapman. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Ben, I'll let you continue that.
I'm going to stick all day with Belly and Hoskins. I've been kind of on that train since the offseason started. Chapman just scares me. Just something about it. I know the glove is there and it would make probably the greatest defensive infield of all time if you pair him with Nico and Dansby, but just something about I obviously I think the terms and the years have kind of gone down on him as the offseason progresses, but just thinking of multiple years of him, especially coming off a year where his numbers are kind of inflated by a really good first month. It's something about him scares me, and I've always kind of shied away. If you could get him on a nice deal, I would say no more than 4 years, then that's fine. But I almost feel like the door kind of closed on him today just because of the fact that the Cubs have so many potential third basemen on their roster that I think they're just going to have this Ferris wheel trying to figure out who fits the best by the time the season comes to an end. And I also think that even they acquired Busch. Let's keep Morel around. I think you should start talking to other teams, especially about Wisdom and Madrigal, because where do they fit at this point with Busch?
Yeah.
See, and I think today means that the likelihood for Hoskins actually decreases.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say Chapman increases because they have so many guys waiting in the wings at third. But Hoskins isn't that good defensively at first. If Busch can be average at first, I think you try it against righties, especially. You go with Wisdom against lefties. I mean, you're not going to fill every hole in one offseason. The combo I would really like, guys, is Bellinger and Jordan Montgomery.
Oh, yeah.
And if that happens, then I think you shouldn't be surprised if it's platoons at each corner, which, again, is not exciting, but that's just where they would be. So that would be like Busch, Wisdom, Madrigal, Mastro with Bellinger in center. So, and Morel DHing. But, Yeah, I as much as I love offense, I really value pitching more. Let's go through that again with the rotation. Steele, Montgomery, Imanaga, Tyone Hendricks.
Yeah.
So
boom. And Shane Bieber.
Oh,
we can wish, right?
You kept him? All right.
No, I'm messing. I think it's too much to ask for at this point, but I still like the prospect of trying to get Morel to play third too. If we and like
I do
said,
too. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Really? What's your thoughts there?
I from what I can gather, and the Athletic has done some good reporting on this. Sahadev Sharma, Patrick Mooney. Morel's feet, his footwork is poor over there.
Mm-hmm.
His arm is incredible. He's been clocked at like 93 plus across the infield. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to catch the ball first, and then you have to make an accurate throw. So I think third base, yeah, it'd be great, but I don't see it.
Yeah.
Christopher Morel is probably like the most interesting piece on the Cubs this entire offseason, because when you look outside Chicago media, people think that you could just get him for a rental pitcher, which might end up
that would be nuts.
It might end up happening. It would make me angry, but who knows?
It totally will end up happening too, especially if they re-sign Bellinger, is what I'm thinking. Because then it's because Bellinger's going to DH then, and like Matt said, you're going to have a platoon of other options on either side. And Morel's trade stock, even if you just get him for a rental pitcher, I hope not, is relatively high after a decent season last year and a great offseason.
You would have to get more though, but I think the thing that I was more trying to say is it really stinks that what is a 25-year-old kid who is going to be stuck at DH for what seems to be his entire life. You would hope he would have a position at this point, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, so does another team put him at second base and give the Cubs a lot of value for him? Maybe that happens, because Morel for a rental, I'm out on that. I'm out.
Yeah.
This kid can hit 40 plus homers.
He hit 30 and like 100 this year.
Mm-hmm. You're going to get a pitcher for 1 year? I don't like that.
No. He has great potential.
If you could get a starting pitcher back for him, let's say the Marlins. Who's their second baseman? Oh, I think it's Luis Ariz. Never mind. He plays second, right?
What about Seattle? Seattle is a good fit.
The Mariners. Logan Gilbert, George Kirby. Yep. They put him at second. Okay. Then you had that pitcher for a while too. But Morel for Pete Alonso. No, not doing it.
I agree.
Because Pete Alonso is free to go wherever he wants after this year.
Right.
And he's a Boris client.
So
does Morel's value though rank as high to non-blue and red glasses guys like you and I? Because I think that he's undervalued by pretty much every single team. So they're not going to, I don't think they'd even consider what we'd want. And so that's why I think they've held on to Morel as long as they have. They're probably waiting for him to get his big break so then they can trade him. But the problem is they don't give him enough time. And I don't blame them why. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's not enough space for him on this team. And as you guys have said, it kind of sucks. Oh, shoot, there goes my mic. But it just kind of sucks.
Well, where was he to open the year last year, by the way? It took so long for him to get up to the majors. Like, he was in Des Moines hitting doubles and homers every night.
Best statistics in all of professional baseball, or whatever the crazy quote was, or whatever it was.
I think that's something that Sam and I have learned on Locked On Cubs, like doing it every day, Monday through Friday. We've tried to explain, hey, here's why these games do matter. And then it turns out the season's over and they missed the playoffs by 1 game. So you can't tell me that Morel being up in April, that could have made up a game or two.
Yep.
I don't know, because you didn't do it.
Yeah, it's valid.
So anyway, we got
you're right.
A bit of a tangent there.
No, you're right. Well, you would think the highest paid manager in baseball's history will know that this year. I would hope that he's going to be doing the right thing from day one.
Despite all the inactivity this offseason, that has brought me a lot of comfort.
Exactly.
Because Craig Counsell, he's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was so happy with this Busch trade today, because I think last year, if we were talking Busch, I feel like they wouldn't have given him as much of an opportunity, kind of similar to Matt Mervis. But now I feel like with Counsell, he's going to give him as many chances as he possibly can to, you know, break out of this little slump he's had and a cup of tea in the major leagues, but truly be the number 2 prospect that was for a really good farm system in the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm. I loved Rossi, but Rossi stuck with his lineup. He loved those guys. And I agree with you, Ben. I like to see the ability to be flexible for Craig Counsell and for this team, because then the door remains so open on the Cubs being more serious with Craig Counsell, right? For other free agents, for more potential trades. I really don't think this is it.
What Cubs position player do you think needs to step up the most as of January 11th in 2024? Is it Happ, Suzuki, Horner, or Swanson?
Based on last year, I would say Happ, because if you kind of had that season 2020, what year are we in? 2024? Because 2022 season, if you even have a little bit like similar to that in 2023, I think it just makes it I'm screwing up my years right now. Makes 2023 all that much grander, and probably would have been an all-star again too.
Happ and Horner both have those extensions, so I'd love to see them still continue to play well on those and play better, I guess. I would love to see Seiya just start getting on base more. He hits the crap out of the ball. It's so frustrating to watch how hard that guy hits the ball. Some of the hardest off the bat in the league. And just, it's not even his fault most of the time, but he just doesn't get on because he just hits the smack out of it just right at somebody. And I know Seiya's 2023 season is going to forever be murked by the whole Braves thing, and it shouldn't, but he was great last year to as much as he could have been. And if he can really just turn it around even more this year, that could be huge. And then we're talking extension with him.
Yeah, 100%.
What about you, to answer your own question?
I think it's Seiya.
Yeah.
I mean, Happ's got to step up. I think he serves his role well, especially if he hits leadoff, which I think Counsell will hit him leadoff against righties. Happ from the left side is better than good, especially, accepting his walks and things like that. But Seiya, his teammates have said he has the most like raw talent. And so if he really breaks out, that would be massive.
Ben, anything else for our friend Matt here on the podcast?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground today.
We did cover a lot of ground.
It was a very fluid talk, and I liked it.
Yeah. Matt, you're a Chicago sports guy at Day's End. We'll close it out with something a little bit more lighthearted. Although I wanted to talk about the Bears or the Hawks, but I guess there's really not much to be happy about. Do you like the Luke Getsy firing?
My instinct is to say that they should have cleaned house.
Yep.
Getsy was a problem, but now who's actually going to come in this situation with an incumbent coach that doesn't have great standing around the league, at least not that we think he does. It's just a vicious cycle with the Bears. It's the same thing every time. I wish it was different with Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles, and maybe it will be, but first indications are that it's not. I think Poles has done good things, but and Eberflus helped the defense this year. I get it. You just hope that an offensive coordinator will come in now on the appeal that he's going to get the top quarterback on the board,
right?
Whoever they think that is, unless they run it back with Fields. I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's like a trap at this point with that team.
My next question was going to be, if you had to switch places, what would you do with that number 1 overall pick? But I think from the sound of your answer there, you sound a lot like how I feel. It just feels so pointless either way. Like, it just feels like the Bears are going to somehow find a way to screw it up. But I mean, they have the opportunity to try and make something happen.
I like Justin Fields. I wouldn't be completely opposed to running it back with him, especially if he's truly built a connection with like DJ Moore, Cole Kmet.
Yeah,
You know,
it seems like he has.
Imagine Marvin Harrison Jr. on the team. You know, they need to sign the best free agent center. They need to draft a receiver. If they do like even those couple moves, really like the offense even more with Fields. I don't know much about Caleb Williams, but you know, maybe, and you could still get a lot of value for Fields too. I mean, what are the projections on him right now? Could you get a second rounder?
Yeah.
Could you get another player? I don't know.
I think that would be the goal, to get a second rounder. If you were to, a second rounder for this year is the hope. If you were to find a way to trade Justin, and I think that could very well be what happens. I like the idea of drafting Marvin Harrison and running it back with Fields if I have to like decide on that. But I don't know. They're gonna have to really sort some things out. Whoever they hire at OC will be an indicator of what the direction they're leading. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I think I'm in the same boat as you, Matt. I'm fine if they run it back with Fields, but my heart is kind of leaning, let's start this thing over again and go Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
But we know how that usually works out for us. So
well, and there's so many good coaches available.
That's the other thing I was going to say too, is I hope that Ryan Poles right now is pulling a Jed Hoyer and is making some secret phone calls with considering what's happened the last couple of days with 3 great coaches getting fired.
What the heck?
That's just the most Bears thing ever. I don't think they'd have any real interest in any of the 3 except maybe Pete Carroll, but it's just the most Bears thing that they controversially stick with a 10-24 coach, and then 3 Hall of Fame football-wide coaches retire or quit. Plus Harbaugh, who's available, whether or not they want to tell you that he is or he isn't. He is available if the price is right. So you got Harbaugh available, and then Belichick, Saban, and Pete Carroll all retire. But again, if the price is right. Yeah, that's
even like Mike Vrabel is better than Eberflus.
I love Vrabel. I would love
he's a free agent now.
I would love Vrabel on the Bears.
The Patriots job is on a plate for Vrabel. At least it seemed like.
Probably.
They seem like, at least the whispers are they're going to go to Mayo, the coordinator. But Vrabel got fired from the Titans because he was flirting with the Patriots so much. But he got his number retired.
Mayo was a former Patriot too, right?
Right. Yeah, okay. But I mean, when Vrabel got his number retired, I saw the clip today that part of the reason supposedly they fired him from the Titans is because early, like mid-season, he got his number retired by the Patriots, and he was like on the podium in Gillette Stadium with the whole like, this organization's better than anyone in the world or something like that. So he was buttering them up already.
Yeah.
But Matt, we appreciate you doing the podcast with us today. We hope to do this again soon. Maybe we'll have to have Sam on at some point and do all 4 of us. Might be too many cooks. We'll have to see, but it would be
that's a good idea. Let's do that.
It'll be fun.
Love it.
But Matt, we appreciate it, and best of luck this season with your show.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Talk soon.